If you were to ask me as a hiring manager why I do not hire younger employees, specifically Gen Z, here's a prime example. I hired a Gen Z employee probably 2 weeks ago, and she was so sweet. Like I said, I don't typically hire younger employees, but she had all the qualifications, so I thought, why not? The other day, I get a message from her, and she's asking for PTO. She's been hired for 2 weeks, so the answer is no. But regardless, I said that I would look into it, and I was going to look into the schedule and see what I could do. Not even 12 hours go by, and she sends me a follow-up email. And instead of being a normal human being, just asking to check up on me, she sent me a link. I will just go ahead and play this for you because I can't explain it.
Started 4 weeks ago, still learning names. Now I'm in your inbox, like got some plans. Flight leaves Friday, yeah, it's kinda last minute. Saw a cheap deal, couldn't not book it. I know it's soon, don't hate me though. Fridays
For a month yet, but I tell you that
I hope
generation
I,
is asking for.
I hope I don't get copyright struck for that. Y'all, the music might be muted, but she sent her some music, a song, like a pop song, basically about leaving town, but it's a pop song.
Is that how the younger generation is asking for PTO nowadays? Not only have you not even been hired for a month yet, but I tell you that I need to look into the schedule and then you send me a song that you make on Suno. I don't know about you, but back in my day, we did not ask for time off 2 weeks into getting hired. Just my point of view.
60% of companies fire Gen Z employees within months of hiring. A recent national poll of managers cited recent college graduates' lack of motivation or initiative as the top reason, with their lack of communication and professionalism close behind. When I see stuff like that, I don't think that it's like a problem with a generation. I just don't think that that's going to be the case. I think that they're just probably going to figure out a new path forward, which is probably going to work out better for them in the long run. Does it mean the system's broken, or does it mean the Gen Z is broken? You know what I mean? It's probably not that just an entire generation of people are broken. I felt like this when millennials were sort of coming into the workforce. It felt like there was this exact same pushback where it was like, millennials just don't, they're lazy and they don't like to work and whatever. And now it's sort of, Gen Z's not motivated, or they don't take initiative, or they're not professional. I just think it's going to be a matter of give it a little bit of time. I do remember reading a study that there was something about Gen Z's ability to communicate professionally, that was something that was for like the first time in history that it's been worse for new generation. But also unprecedented thing happened while they were like in the middle of high school, which was COVID. So if you take 2 years away from school and socializing and things like that, then it might have put you behind the eight ball a little bit. 60%.
So here's the thing, and I think it would be easier to bring this through a lens of how would I handle certain situations. I think it's just cleaner. In regards to the PTO example, starting a job 2 weeks in and asking for time off already, I think I wouldn't do that as a professional. That wouldn't be what I would do or what I would think would be normal. But I think it can also come down to your leverage as well. Um, it can come down to ultimately what it will come down to in that situation is how much you need that job and how much you care about that job. And so I probably would care because everything I do is intentional. So if I am somewhere, then that means that I see that that company or that job is going to be able to propel me to where I'm trying to be. So I wouldn't want to do anything to necessarily mess it up or especially make any bad first impressions. Now, as far as the communication aspect, I've definitely seen a more lax attitude as far as how younger people are communicating and addressing people. And it doesn't seem like there's as many thresholds between age groups as it used to be. And I mean by this, I think it used to be a thing of respect your elders and you just can switch things up depending on the person or maybe the position or anything. But I think what might have happened is with like social media, you get to see behind the veil a lot more. And just people are a lot more public than they used to be. Even if you think about music artists, right? A lot of music artists, like think about 50 Cent, T.I., and I'm just using random music artists. they used to have the gangster persona, and it was like a mystique about them to where it was like, oh man, like it's the real deal. And look at like 50 Cent, for example. Like, you used to think he was a gangster with the bulletproof vest, everything. And you find out like he's just a troll, he's goofy, he's laughing around and joking around. And so you see behind the veil, you're like, this is a grown up, but he still has some kiddish ways in a lot of ways. And so I think that might have also broken the disconnect between just boundaries between age groups and all that type of stuff. But let's hear some more examples, y'all. If you could like the video, I greatly appreciate it. Only takes a second, and it actually helps out more than you know. And also, if you could hype.
The article that stated that bosses are firing their Gen Z grads at an alarming rate shortly after bringing them on board once they have graduated college. And the video that I watched done on the article was blaming the teachers for these young adults not being able to show up on time and meet deadlines and dress and communicate professionally. This is not a teacher problem. This is a parenting problem. A teacher has never taught me how to conduct myself as a professional on a job. Those are things that my parents taught me as a young adult. And the reason why these young adults, these Gen Z grads, are having such a hard time is because they lack guidance from their parents. Parents are not parenting like they used to. The reason why Gen X and the earlier millennials did not deal with this issue because we did not walk onto workplaces, on jobs, thinking that we were bigger than the program. A lot of these Gen Z grads are thinking that they're bigger than the program straight out of college. This is not the way the world works, a job works, or especially corporate America. You will get your ass fired. Now, I just read a
Y'all, she brought up a great insight. And I actually brought that up in one of my recent videos about Gen Z or whatever wearing do rags and bonnets to job interviews. What I'll do is I'll link that video at the end as well if you want to watch that. I wore my do rag in that video. So that's how you'll know which one it is. But she brings up a great point because I brought up the same point in that video as far as, well, whose fault is it? And I elaborated and I basically came to the conclusion that I feel like it's the parents' fault, the same as she did. But I like how she distinguished as well that it's like they don't want to get on the program. And ultimately, kind of is more of a self centered way when you're addressing working for a corporation, which is going to be more geared toward collaboration. So I like how she bridged that, but I think we have to go deeper and address the deeper issue because I think that the reason that the parents aren't really pouring into the kids as much is the same issue, more of a self-centered nature, being more self-centered and not necessarily having kids to be able to pour into the kids because they're more focused on what they got going on. And so that's why I feel like it becomes a bigger issue. It may not be the fact that Gen Z, they're just so self-centered and they're not whatever. I think we've just moved into a culture as a whole where people are more self-centered, they're more narcissistic. I think everyone's narcissistic now, right? Everyone thinks that they're going to be the next TikTok sensation. Everybody's got their dreams that they want. Everybody wants to travel the world and live this glamorous life, right? I think as a society in general, we've become more self-centered and more of the world and more of material things and just more for ourselves. And I think it translates and trickles down into everything, including Gen Z and the attention that they got. But I think some people were fortunate enough to come from the previous generation where things weren't thought of in that way and people were more family oriented and community oriented. But now things are more self centered. Even today, like when you have certain people, and even a stranger isn't necessarily gonna pour into a kid. Whereas in a generation prior, you may be able to pull a kid to the side because you knew that that respect level was going to be there to where if an adult tells them something, leading to my original point at the beginning, if an adult pulls a kid to the side, that kid is going to understand the boundaries between an adult and a child. And they're probably going to listen and be receptive. Now, we have these terms like YN and all this type of thing. And it makes you kind of on pins and needles, and it makes you a little bit hesitant to even approach a child because I think there may be some fear because you don't know how that child's going to react. You don't know you don't know if that child's dangerous. Let's just be real. As well as in a lot of cases, you talk to somebody's child and then their parents will be at your neck. So it's just people are just like, well, do what you want. I'm not going to take the risk, which also leads back to the self, just out for self, protecting self. And I think that's more of the societal structure that we've kind of fallen into today for a multitude of reasons, like I mentioned, and of course, social media being a big contributor.
They were not lying. You guys have seen those articles talking about how Gen Z is being fired at a disproportionate rate. It's true. I'm saying that as somebody who has hired and fired a number of people over the last couple of years. It really does come down to a lot of things that in these articles. Lack of motivation, professionalism, and lack of initiative are making a decision. And I know what you're going to say because I've seen the comments, right? Well, they're not paying me to do extra and they're not paying me to take initiative. Okay, initiative is not going above and beyond. That's different. Taking initiative is if you're given a task, proactively think of the steps that you need to do to get that task accomplished. If I were to boil it down into one thing, initiative is understanding that you are being paid for an output or an outcome, not effort. Let me say it again, cleaner, okay? They are not paying you for effort. They're paying you for an output or an outcome. I don't care what your job is, I guarantee you that is what they've had to demonstrate to even hire for that role. The sooner you can figure that out, the better, more efficient you are at doing it, is how you not only keep your job, but get promoted. Those who can't figure that out are the ones who are losing their jobs. This is not just Gen Z, it's in general, but I'm seeing a lot of Gen Z in the comments. Well, they're not paying me for that. Paying me for being here. They're paying me for showing up. That's all I'm required to do. No, you look at a job description, there's specific outcomes, jobs to be done that you were hired for. Those jobs are paying you for, not how hard you work, how long you sit there, how much effort you put in. You're being paid for an outcome. And I'll tell you a little secret. The faster you can get to that outcome, the freaking better for you and them. But that's the difference between those who are keeping their jobs and those who are struggling to keep their jobs. And how do you do it with a decent attitude? Because
Yes. And you notice what word keeps coming up in all of these clips? The magic word that keeps translating from video to video that we're reviewing is initiative. And I love how she also extrapolated the fact that initiative is tied to the outcome and that needs to be the focus, and that the faster that you can actually get to that outcome, the better it'll be. Because I think that does relate to Gen Z, and I think that they haven't correlated the importance of that. Here's what I mean. Initiative for sure is a big one because we talk about government assistance sometimes, and sometimes even online begging on TikTok or whatever it may be. And you see a lot of Gen Z on government assistance programs, as well as begging online or just even begging people to blow up their account so they can get monetized, the works. And it leads you to wonder, you're able bodied and you're young, but you're acting like you can't do something or it's not possible. Another common example is, how many times have you seen one of these younger kids talk about, I've put out 100 job applications and I've got one interview? Where initiative would tie in is, you need to try something different. You need to try something that will stand out. You need to take initiative and do what works. I don't care if that's um, going a little bit deeper and actually looking at who works at that company. That could be actually walking up there and trying to hand deliver your paper, your resume, excuse me. That could be, hey, if that one interview that you did get, did you reach out to the person that you were going to be interviewing with and say, hey, I wanted to send you what type of coffee do you like? I like to do coffee and chats. I know that it's going to be a cool conversation. I love if we could still have the interview, but I would love to send you a coffee. They'll probably deny it, but The fact that you just showed that little bit of initiative could be all the difference. And it'll make you stand out and they'll remember you. And you should be trying to get remembered. But a lot of times they'll just keep doing the same thing that ain't working and then just be complaining about it. And so I think what she's saying, right? You're gonna send she said the speed to outcome and getting the results is important. And I think, yes, you're gonna send 100 job interviews for 6 months and not get the job when one iced coffee could have got you the job in a week. Think about this. Think about how much time you not wanting to spend that money just had an opportunity cost of all the money you could have made within that time that you keep wasting your time sending out these applications. But they haven't correlated that. And I think that is absolutely one of the missing pieces when it comes to what we're talking about today. Is that initiative that I definitely see. And that's definitely an issue. And it's like I do see where they need to like kind of be told a lot of things where you don't understand that the creativity, I just came up with those examples. It's a million different things. It's a million different possibilities, but you keep doing the one that's not working.
Stop firing Gen Z from the workplace. These trends that I'm seeing about people firing Gen Z just as quickly as they hire them is ridiculous. You think that you can just ice out an entire generation from the workforce? Newsflash, it is up to you to provide them with the training, the resources, and the tools to make sure that they are successful because they are the future of business. If you want innovation, productivity, collaboration in the future for your business, you're going to need to learn how to work with Gen Z. And while they have a lot of room to improve and grow in their professional communication skills, it is up to you as the organization to invest in those resources. I work with a handful of clients that are bringing in workplace communications professionals to help them learn email communication. Now that 73% of business is done via email, that is an imperative skill. Executive presence, being able to resolve interpersonal conflict, client communication, and being able to service clients productively. These are all imperative skills, and it's up to you to be able to train them to be able to do this. Stop firing Gen Z from.
Yeah, absolutely. But they also have to be receptive as well. And for like older professionals, right? One thing when they ask during interviews or whatever, like, what can distinguish you from other candidates? Especially if you work in a field that, a lot of Gen Z typically goes for, but maybe you're trying to be innovative and be in a better field, like tech, for example. One great answer you can give on that interview, if they ask and you actually have professional experience, is you just say professional maturity. And then you can elaborate and basically just say all the opposite things that they've been complaining about Gen Z in these videos, and that'll hold up. Because, yes, they lack that professional maturity. And I think that a lot of that would be taught from home first. Why? Because their parents would have professional maturity. Otherwise, you're just going to have to get it in careers. And by you just getting career experience, you would ultimately develop some professional maturity in how to carry yourself at a job and how to act. So I think when it all comes home and we bring it in totality, it's really that Gen Z are young, so they just lack professional maturity. And they'll get it, like what she's saying, you have to pour into them, they got to learn. I think people are getting frustrated because some of the stuff they'll do, they're not necessarily, they may not necessarily be receptive to the feedback like you would like them to be. But when it all comes home, they really just lack professional maturity. And that can be developed. But I do also think that they are changing the way that the workforce operates, especially in some careers. They will actually look down on you if you wear a suit and tie because you have to understand as well. The job force is getting more complex. And now you have to really understand what type of culture. That is one of the biggest things now that is really becoming very important in the workforce. If Imagine a company where it's just a bunch of young people and they like to have a good time and they like to go out, whatever. And then you got some 60-year-old trying to go work over there. They may not fit the culture. So you got to kind of understand some of those things now. And you got to really know what type of culture as well that you're going into. And I think that they have changed the culture because Like I said, there's some jobs they'll look down on you if you're wearing like a suit or tie or whatever. Like that'll disqualify you because it may reflect the previous culture that they're trying to move away from. It's kind of like the workforce is becoming like how politics is. Like it's becoming divided a little bit. And so you have to be keen on that and you have to be aware of that and you can't try to act like it doesn't exist. But I can go all day. Y'all, we'll leave it there for today. If you could like the video, I greatly appreciate it. Only takes a second and it actually helps out more than you know. Also, if you could hype the video, hype is a new feature that YouTube offers where it helps smaller content creators like myself. And basically, when you hype, it actually pushes us to the extent that it pushes the larger content creators. So you just press the hype button, then it shows the points. And since I am a smaller content creator, we get more points per hype. So hype is designed for smaller content creators, not larger content creators. And you can tell when you press it. But also Patreon's link below if you want to see self-improvement content as well. Until then, I'll catch you in the next video.